Do you like all things fall and pumpkin? If so, you're going to love this healthier pumpkin bread recipe made with good for you ingredients. Follow along as we pull this super simple pumpkin bread recipe together. Hey, I'm Cassie Joy Garcia. I'm the owner, founder, holistic nutritionist behind Fed and Fit, and I teach you how to make family staples that are easier and better for you than ever. Alrighty, so today we are going to make this healthier pumpkin bread, and it's actually going to be maybe a little bit easier than you might think. Pumpkin bread is one of those dishes that I love to lean on, especially in the fall. I'm craving it right now. I'm craving it all the time, let's be honest. I'm gonna start off by opening up the star ingredient, which is some pumpkin puree. And if you happen to have fresh pumpkin puree on hand because you roasted your own pumpkin, that's great. I want you to use that. If not, canned is going to work great. This recipe calls for coconut oil. And coconut oil, depending on where you are in the country, it solidifies at room temperature, which is totally normal and natural. But this recipe calls for a measurement that is most easily measured in liquid form. So how do we turn this into a liquid measuring form? And what I like to do, there's a bunch of different methods. You could definitely scoop it out and then measure it as you go and melt it in the microwave or on the stove or whatever you feel great about. But I like to get about an inch of water simmering on the stove in a large pan like this. Is a saute pan, and then I'll just stick it right into the water, but this will start to melt that coconut oil down, so I'll be able to just pour it right into my measuring cup. While that melts, that coconut oil melts, I'm gonna go ahead and measure out our pumpkin puree. This recipe calls for 1 1/4 cup of pumpkin puree. This recipe was actually developed by a friend and colleague of mine. Her name is Brittany Angel, and occasionally she'll pop over to Fed and Fit and help us come up with some fabulous baked recipes. It's definitely part of her gifting for sure. So she helped us come up with these, and they're just really, really wonderful. You're in for a treat. If you make a mess in the kitchen while you're cooking, I like to think you're doing something right. I'm always making a mess. I'm just like shoveling pumpkin puree onto the floor. Okay, this leaves a little bit of pumpkin puree left in the can, and you might be wondering, what can I do with this? And what I like to do is save this. I will scoop this sometimes into a little ice cube tray, like a plastic ice cube tray, if you've got one. It's great in smoothies. Pop that into your morning protein smoothie and lean into some pumpkin spice flavors everywhere. It's gonna be so delicious. Okay, so next up, we're going to add in our eggs. So this recipe comes together, it's a 1 bowl recipe. How nice is that? Y'all, I don't know about you, I do not have the patience for lots of bowls, lots of fussy steps. I just don't have it in me. Okay, so for the liquid, you can add in water, orange juice, or you could do a strong coffee. And that sounds really delicious to me. So we're gonna do the strong coffee. So let's go ahead and measure it off together. This is a low caffeine cold brew. 1, 2, if I don't count out loud, I will never get it right. 3. Okay, so this coffee is actually very concentrated. So instead of doing all 6 tablespoons of coffee, I'm gonna split it and do 3 tablespoons of that cold brew and then 3 tablespoons water. 2. Okay, and then almost last, I guess, of our liquid ingredients is going to be some vanilla extract. And because I'm doing this for you, I will actually measure it. But at home, I really don't measure my vanilla extract or extracts of any kind because I just kind of pour until my heart's happy. But we're gonna follow the instructions. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract goes in, and by now, that coconut oil is melted. It can be a little tricky. I highly recommend using an oven mitt. Very important. Please don't burn yourself. This whole jar is going to be hot now. So put on your oven mitt. I like these because they're, in addition to being heat proof, they are also waterproof. So if you've got something like that, that would be really great. Carefully balance it on a towel. That would also work great, probably be less slippery than what I've got going here. We need 2/3 cup of coconut oil. So I'm gonna find my line on my measuring cup. And you always kind of want to get down so that you can kind of really see where the meniscus, the top of that line, the water line is hitting. And then just go ahead and pour. Alrighty, wasn't that so easy? So I think that's so much easier than guessing when you're scooping solid coconut oil into a jar and then melting the jar down. I find this is so much more straightforward. Okay, so this goes in with our other liquid ingredients. It smells like heaven already. And we're just gonna give this a really thorough whisk. Alrighty, so the flour is what's gonna go in next. And this recipe calls for either whole wheat flour. I'm actually using gluten-free flour. It's the King Arthur cup for cup is their version. And this is the way that my grandmother taught me to measure flour. Of course, you could measure it and be more exact, but to use the flat side of a butter knife and to chop it down, which would fill in any holes, and then swipe it with the flat edge. And what that does is it gives you a nice level scoop. It's important not to pack down your flour because you can see it will pack down and you could fit in more flour, but that would change the chemistry of your final baked goods. So don't pack it down, just an even swipe or scoop, or you could also measure the weight. Some chops, a swipe, and then right in to the bowl. Next up is going to be our coconut palm sugar. If you're unfamiliar with palm sugar, it is a lot like brown sugar is how it behaves in baked goods. And it looks a lot like brown sugar, and I'm also of the belief that you can really substitute brown sugar for palm sugar. Next up is going to be our leavening agent, and we're going to lean on baking powder for this recipe. So the recipe calls for 1 1/4 teaspoon baking powder. I'm also going to go ahead and add in a teaspoon of Himalayan pink sea salt. Any salt that you've got on hand that's not too coarse is going to work great. So the most prominent spice is going to be our pumpkin pie spice. Kind of going to call for an entire tablespoon of it. Oh, you can see I did a little extra. It'll be just fine. And now we're going to add 1/2 of a teaspoon of ginger powder. Okay, so the next thing that we can do is we can bake this as is. We actually don't need our whisk anymore. We could be done if you wanted to be done. If you don't want to be done, if you want to add in some fun extras, you absolutely can. So you can actually add in, this recipe will hold up to an extra 2 cups of add-ins. So what could you add in to make this pumpkin bread all your own? I want you to make it your own. So we have some options here for visual. You could do a nut. You could do, I've got some dark chocolate chips. Some pumpkin seeds would be really delicious and very on brand for pumpkin bread. You could also do some dried cranberries, some dried cherries. All of those would be delicious. I'm feeling the chocolate. I'm gonna say, the baby wants some chocolate. You can see how I measure. It's not as exact as the flour. It's a little bit more fluty-flu. So I've got a cup of chocolate chips in there, and then I'm gonna use all 3 because they're here. I'm gonna do 1/2 of a cup of these pumpkin seeds, and then about 1/2 of a cup of these dried cranberries. Yum. Now I'm really excited about this. So we're just gonna fold this in. When it comes to folding in your extras and your add-ins, I don't really think that I wouldn't use the whisk. These little extras will get caught up in that whisk, whereas a spatula will work great for making sure that they're evenly distributed. Woo, okay. Now we have our loaf pan. This is up next. This is just a standard size loaf pan. You have some choices. You could butter this and then call it nonstick, call it good. Or you could use a piece of parchment paper, and that's what I'm going to use today is parchment paper because I want to be able to pull it out and be able to show you what it looks like after a good slice. So I've got my parchment paper here. This is actually reused parchment paper. You could definitely reuse it if you want. So I think when it comes to parchment paper, you can measure it a few different ways. I like to place it on my pan first and then press it in so I can kind of get an idea of where my corners are. And then pull it out so I've got an idea of where the pan's corners. And I'm going to get my scissors and cut out the corners so it'll all rest in there really nicely. You could also cut these into long strips and have 2 strips that lay over top of each other. That would be great too. Into our loaf pan. Look how handy that is. Just like that. And then when we're ready to pull it out, we have those little handles. Time to put our batter into the loaf pan. Don't overthink it. It's just gonna all go right in. You can scoop it all, pour it all in. I like to do a scoop so that I just make sure it's ending up close to the center of the pan. If you like, you could garnish with a few more pumpkin seeds. I'll do that right now. Whereas some pumpkin bread recipes, and we have some also for you that are slightly more indulgent, have a streusel top. This one you can really lean on those really fun, healthy fillings. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do before this is ready for the oven is tint it with aluminum foil. Now the difference between covering something tightly with aluminum foil and tinting it is essentially what you probably have already guessed, but tinting is essentially just lightly placing something over top. Steam can still escape it, but it's protected from the oven. And so we're going to tint this, bake it. I'm going to fold this in a little bit so it's slightly smaller. We're going to bake this at 350 degrees. The first 15 minutes are going to be tinted, just like this. See how nice and open and airy that is? And then after 15 minutes, pull the foil off and let it keep baking for another 50 to 55 minutes until you're able to stick a toothpick in the center and it comes out clean. Let's pop it in the oven. Okay, it's out of the oven and it's cooled to the touch, so I'm going to just pull it up with our little handles. I love it so much. You can flatten it if you want. You could pull it off of the paper if you want, or you could cut it right on there. I'm going to go ahead and tilt it and pull it off. Beautiful. And we must taste test it. This is an example of a very simply done one. I have some softened butter here. This is a generous amount of butter. I can't help myself. When I put softened butter on any kind of bread, I also think it deserves a little sprinkle of sea salt, of flaky sea salt. Oh my gosh. That is so good. It really is. This recipe is incredible, and I hope you get a chance to make it. And if you do, please come back and let me know in the comments below how it turned out. And if you love pumpkin bread and you want to see our other varieties that we have for you, they're over on fedandfit.com, linked below. We have a vegan pumpkin bread, a keto-friendly pumpkin bread. We also have a really classic pumpkin bread with a streusel topping waiting for you. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next video, which is going to be a creamy pumpkin pie. And in the meantime, check out all of the great Instant Pot recipes that I've got for you linked here. Thanks for being here.